welcome back to the temporal pincer movement of a podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Love, Death and Movies podcast, internet's #1 film breakdown and review show, the show that crushes watch lists week after week. Every month is a different genre, every week is a different film in that genre, so follow us in everything, join us on the ride, and let's watch the movies. With me, of course, each and every week, Pride of the West Coast, Ash First Movies, and welcoming back the back-to-back two-time champion, award winner of the Lovelies, the hardest working man on TikTok, Tyler Whitmore. Guys, how are we going? Tyler, how are you? Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Excited to talk Tenet. I had a great time talking Boyhood with y'all last time. I don't think it was quite a year ago, but it's been a minute for sure. So I'm glad to be back on. And Ash is her first time watching Tenet, so excited to hear her thoughts on it as well. But yeah, always excited to talk to you too.
Awesome, Ash. How are you?
Nice. Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad it's the weekend. It's been a hectic week, and yeah, I'm happy to be here chatting with you guys about this very complicated movie that I enjoyed.
Yeah, Ash messaged me this morning. She's like, "How the hell did you write notes for this?" And I'm like, the song of my voice and a smile on my heart. We're going through a month of time travel films. So we kind of do a little bit of diversity. So we've done Back to the Future. We did About Time, which we did that last episode, which comes out next week. That movie's I saw your review for that, Tyler. You agree with that? That movie's spectacular.
Yeah, it's like at one point in time I called it my all-time favorite. Now it's still top 3 for me. So
yeah,
big fan.
I was saying last episode, I was like, this might be my favorite romance film of all time. Like it just could be. Then we're doing Tenet, and then next week we're doing Pleasantville, which I've never seen. So I'm very keen to give that a watch because Ash swears by it. But yeah, we did say that we're going to have a guest on for Tenet, and we have been foreshadowing it in the last couple of weeks, being like, if you just go on TikTok, the one person that's always talking about Tenet, it's probably going to be him. So we're so keen to have you back, man. So we're keen to get into Tenet, but before we start, we like to do a little game that we always do for any guest that comes on, because I think every time that we haven't had an Australian guest on, so we should probably have a look at an Australian guest soon, Ash. Anytime we have someone that's not Australian on, we like to do a little test. So the Australian citizenship test, where I'm going to give you a range of different slang terms. Ash keeps passing and then gets deported, so she's trying to get in again. Where you basically just team up. You've got to tell me what each slang term means from Australia. Because I grew up in Australia, of course. You can tell by the accent, but all these words mean, it's normal life for me. But apparently we speak in the most bizarre way possible. But I've got 7 terms. We'll see if we can get through 7. It should be fine. But for the first one, this should be easy. What's a budgie smuggler? You guys,
budgie smuggler?
This is good. You don't know what a budgie smuggler? Yeah, continue. It's gonna be great.
I'm gonna ask what I always ask, which is, can you use it in a sentence?
Wow, that guy has a wild pair of budgie smugglers on.
That changes things. I was thinking budgie could be like budget and smuggler could be like a wallet. So I was thinking it'd be like a wallet or something, but that does not add up to now using a sentence. So a pair of budgie smugglers. So a pair, so multiple someone's wearing. I guess our toes budgies. I guess socks the only thing that I can think of. I like that idea.
Yeah.
So a budgie smuggler is, do you know what a Speedo is?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a Speedo. In Australia, if you look at a man wearing a Speedo, it looks like he's smuggling a budgie, and that's why they call budgie smugglers. Now there's a big brand called budgie smugglers, and that's what we call Speedos in Australia.
I think I was getting hung up on it being maybe a set of something, so socks was the only thing I could think of.
It's just it's like underwear that swim trunks sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's hilarious. I didn't know.
Weird.
I thought that was not that Australian, but there we go. That is fucking hilariously Australian. What is a stubby holder?
Stubby, I don't know why my mind always goes to beer.
Well, we are the land of drinking and gambling. We gamble on everything.
Like one of those, I don't know, like a mug thing you'd put your beer in, but that, I don't know. I'm not confident in that.
What is the term? Stubby holder?
Yeah, stubby holder. STUBBY holder.
I don't know. Maybe like a case for cigarettes or something. I don't know.
I'm going to give you the point because Ash, you're correct. It's a beer cooler. Stubbies.
There you go.
Stubbies are short beers. So you got long necks, which is the big ones, and then you got normal beers, and then you got stubbies, which is the little fat boys. And you put a beer cooler on that. It's called a stubby holder.
I think I knew maybe what stubby was. Maybe that's where I went to the beer thing.
Yeah. So this is a common phrase in Australia. Not too common, but it's common. What do I mean when I say I'm not here to fuck spiders? I'm not making this shit up.
Never anywhere will you say something like that except for Australia.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Not here to fuck spiders. There's also a PG version, which is I'm not here to put socks on caterpillars.
That sounds like you're like going to like you don't want to shake things up. I don't know. That's where my mind is going. Or you don't want to cause an issue with somebody.
Wasting time. I don't know. You're not here to waste time.
Yes, correct. We're not here to
Okay.
mess around. Not here to mess around. We're not
Bravo.
here to fuck spiders here, guys. Come on, let's get the job done. You know.
Got it. It's a weird thing to say. But got it.
If I say that I'm going to bail on an Arvo Thirst Crush sesh, what am I doing? Bail on an Arvo Thirst Crush sesh.
Oh man.
Are you real people? What are you even talking about?
That one has like 4 or 5 terms that I just have no idea what they could even mean. So putting
this
them all
one's
together, I'm just even more lost.
This is going to be tough. I got 3 more after this. They're all just one words. But bail on an Arvo. We've done Arvo before, Ash. You know Arvo.
Yeah, it's ringing a bell.
I don't know that one. Bail on an Arvo what sesh?
Thirst Crush sesh.
Thirst Crush sesh.
I just have to imagine it's crushing beers and you're bailing on that. I don't know.
Yes.
Yes?
That's it, yeah. So, like, having a session of drinking beers together, you call them a thirst sesh or a thirst crush sesh because you're crushing your thirst. And bailing on it in the afternoon, Arvo. Bailing on an Arvo.
Afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you it.
You're a bunch of alcoholics, Harry. I don't know.
We are. Land of the free, mate. But what is a dunny? Dunny. Dunny.
I thought you said Dundee for a second. I was like, I know what a Dundee is.
Can you use that one in a sentence?
Every house has a dunny in it. It's hilarious. There was I went to an anniversary screening of Crocodile Dundee, and Paul Hogan, the guy that plays Crocodile Dundee, was there a couple weeks ago. That was great. It's like meeting.
I don't know if Australia has basements, but I don't know. Dunny could be like dungeons, like a basement. But I don't know I know some places like don't just have basements at all. So it might be. I don't know. My mind's going to dunny, meaning something for dungeons. So I don't know what that would be in a house.
So that's a fair point.
Every house
Garage?
has a dungeon.
Every house has a dungeon in Australia. A dunny is a toilet in Australia.
That's weird.
Dunny. Yeah. I've got 2 more for you. What's a Sheila? Don't think.
I wonder if
Don't
it
think too
actually has to
convoluted.
do with a woman or not.
Is it the derogatory Australian Karen?
Wait a second. I think, okay,
Go ahead.
sidebar for a second. I watched a Mary-Kate and Ashley movie growing up where they have to be in the witness protection and they go to Australia and they use this term about somebody being a Sheila. And I don't remember exactly the context, but I know that they used it to describe somebody.
So you know it's a real word. I'm not just making
What a
it
pull.
up.
Yeah, what a pull.
What? But I don't know like how to define it necessarily. Is it like,
You're overthinking it, Ash.
I know.
Trust me, you're overthinking it.
I don't know.
Just what would you first say?
Oh, a girl?
Yeah, it's a
A
woman.
woman?
Yeah.
It's just a woman?
Sheila's a woman. A women. Like
Okay.
you got fellas and Sheilas.
Well, thank you, Mary-Kate and Ashley, for
There you go.
Nice.
that one.
And
Knowledgeable movie.
yeah, absolutely. Man, Mary-Kate and Ashley. It's crazy how they are nowhere near the most successful Olsen sibling. Finally, what's a piss up? 2 words: piss, P-I-S-S, up, U-P. What's a piss
Wow.
up?
Gosh, you guys are just using words in such a weird way. I would never use the phrase piss up.
See-
Can you use that one in a sentence?
What are you doing tonight? Craig's throwing a big piss up. Craig's a good dude
party?
as well. Yeah.
It's like a
Yeah,
I mean, I was thinking before you use a sentence like piss up would be like you're just like plastered drunk,
Yeah.
piss up, like so it's like I guess if that you use it that way, yeah, it's like a big drinking party rager type thing.
Like, it's not a common phrase, but saying drinking beer is drinking piss a lot.
Yeah.
In
Gotcha.
Australia, so a piss up is like drinking lots of alcohol. So yeah, no, you know, you guys are granted. Nice. So we're going into speaking
Ash,
of
Ash carried there. I did not do much
Half of
well.
those were alcohol based. I'd just like to point
yeah,
out.
welcome
And
to
that's how they've been
Australia,
every
dude.
time.
Welcome to Australia. It's
That's
fucking-
that's the advantage you have over guests though, is that you know like you go through this every time when there's a guest. So you're like, yeah, most like all these are alcohol based. So you just throw something out there with alcohol and you're like, yeah, I'm probably gonna get halfway there.
yeah, exactly.
works.
It's alcohol or gambling. Like there was like I think when George came on, I just described like the ones that I had was like all different slangs that we had for different money notes. Like because Australia has all colourful money notes, so we describe them as like the $20 bill's red, and we call it a lobster. $50 bill's yellow, and we call it a pineapple, and stuff like that. It's like fuck, we are a cartoon down here, but it is what it is. Speaking of piss ups. So we're going to get into Tenet, which is, of course, directed by Sir Christopher Nolan. But before we do, he has such a great filmography. We're going through it last week, me and Ash, and we were just discussing like how great his filmography is. And he's soon to be directing The Odyssey, which we can't wait for. That's going to be epic. But I feel like it's one of those directors that just has... Everyone has a different top five. So yeah, I think it's great if we just go through what each one of our top fives are. If we all go through 5 and then all through 4, etc., just to show you the vast diversity of what everyone's opinion is of Christopher Nolan. So Tyler, being our guest, what is your number 5 on the top 5 Christopher Nolan films for you?
Yeah, number 5, I have Interstellar, and I rate that a 4.5 out of 5. Incredible movie. I did not get to see it on the IMAX re-release, but I know a lot of people got to experience that and loved it. But yeah, Interstellar for me, incredible Matthew McConaughey performance, breathtaking visuals, definitely one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. I don't know where it would rank, but I don't know. It's so hard with Nolan to rank because so many of them are like neck and neck. But number 5 for me would be Interstellar.
Nice. Ash, good pick.
Yeah, shockingly, mine is also Interstellar.
There you go.
And it's also 4.5. And I also did not get to see it in the IMAX re-release. I swear I'm not copying you, Tyler. It's all true. I will say I have not rewatched a couple of these in a while. Interstellar is not one of those. I did rewatch it like I think 3 or 4 months ago, and absolutely loved it. But my top 4, I feel like I just wanted to leave it where I have it now, but I could very much see it changing with maybe just like 1 or 2 of them. So yeah, as it stands. Interstellar at number 5. I agree with everything you said, and I think the score in this one is just outstanding.
Yeah, sure. I love Hans. I'm gonna go see him live in a couple months. I can't wait. Yeah, number 5 for me is Inception. I think like I was battling out last night of what takes number 5 spot because there's like 4 of them that could for me. But I think just the whole idea of Inception I think is awesome. It's a heist movie in your dreams. I think that in itself is sick, and the cast is brilliant. And this movie I still remember seeing this movie. I think it was like 2008. I saw it twice in one day, and I still remember like the whole audience, the whispers in the audience where the twist at the end happens, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's the Asian guy," and like so it's like, "Oh," and like the whole audience starts to ripple, and you're like, that was like kind of the moment in my head that I remember being like, "Oh shit, that's what a movie twist is in a way." So yeah, number 5 is Inception. Tyler, your 4.
My number 4 is Inception. So
Nice.
not much I need to add there. I think it's incredible. It's actually a movie that I watched obviously a while ago back in here when it came out and really, really loved it. And then over the years kind of was like, oh, maybe it's just like a more overrated movie in my head and it didn't age as well for me. But then I rewatched it pretty recently and I'm like, yeah, this is just great stuff here. And Leo's awesome in it. But the whole cast is great. But I really like Leo's performance, especially on rewatch. But yeah, 4.5 stars for me as well. But number 4 for me is Inception.
Nice. Ash.
Nice. Can you imagine if I said Inception too? No, it's The Dark Knight. And this is one that I haven't rewatched it super recently, but it's always just kind of been a movie that I've loved. I think I saw it when it came out. Yeah, I saw it in theaters for sure. And just absolutely loved it. I feel like my like initial movie taste with Nolan was like this movie. And maybe Inception too, but I feel like those two were kind of like I was very much into those 2 films, and they kind of got me like more into movies. So I've always loved it. I'm not like the biggest superhero or Batman fan by any means, but I just think it's so cool. Heath Ledger is just all-time performance. I think Christian Bale is not my favorite Batman, but I do think as Bruce Wayne in this, he's fantastic, and it's just got that Nolan touch to it. So it's actually 5 stars still, but I don't know if it'll stay that when I rewatch it.
I love that because it's more like a crime movie than a superhero movie, you know. Number 4 for me, and it's rising, is Tenet. Like after this rewatch, it's gone into my top 5. Man, this movie's I said this in my reviews, like this movie benefits off a rewatch so much. The more you watch it, the more you understand, and the more like the craft behind it just comes together a bit more. I think this movie is special. So I can't wait to talk through it. But number 4 is Tenet. Tyler, you're 3.
Number 3 is now when we get to the 5 stars for me. But the kind of clear number 3 of those 5 stars would be The Prestige.
Ooh, nice.
Love this one. When I first started going through Nolan's filmography, I thought this one was a little underrated just because, I mean, rating wise, I wouldn't say it's underrated, but in terms of people talking about it, it's not usually the first one people bring up. But, you got Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman going toe to toe, supporting cast as well, ScarJo, great. Everything about this I love. First time I watched it was just one of those, which is the same with a lot of Nolan movies where you watch it and there's just such a mystery or a twist that just makes you want to show it to everyone, like immediately be like, I want to see what you think when you see this and how your mind reacts. But love The Prestige. Been a long while since I've rewatched it, but still holding a 5-star for me.
Nice. Ash.
Number 3, right? Yeah. Mine is Memento, which I don't think is probably in most people's top 5, but this was a movie that the first time I watched it just absolutely blew my mind. And I think Guy Pearce is super underrated as an actor. And I think that it's just such an interesting story. It's more of one of his like simple movies, I would say, in comparison to some of these like big spectacle movies. But there's just something about it. I just love the story. I love the twists. I love all the actors. I just don't see that one ever not being 5 stars for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. Number 3, yeah, I'm the same as 3 onwards is 5 out of 5 for me. Oppenheimer. I love Oppenheimer. This movie's so goddamn great. It's insane because it got announced and like, oh, it's just another biopic. It's a Nolan film, so that's gonna be great. But it's insane how he made a biopic feel so epic. And I think everything from like the acting down to how brilliant the score is. I think it's Ludwig did this, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So everything about it is just so goddamn good. And that Trinity test scene is like one of the best scenes in cinema in the last 20 years. So yeah, number 3 is Oppenheimer for me, but Talia 2.
My number 2 is Tenet, and so obviously also a 5-star. But Prestige is like the clear 3rd place of my 5 stars in my ranking. But this and my number 1 are like pretty much neck and neck, and I could be convinced either way on a different day. One is my number 1 Nolan, the other is, but yeah, love Tenet. How many times have I watched at this point? I've seen it 5 times now. So
I looked at your activity. And it was like it's like 17 times in 40 minutes.
I didn't even realize I rewatched it that many times. But yeah, I love Tenet. Just such a fun movie, such a cool world, such cool characters. Big fan of the score as well. Also Ludwig. But yeah, Tenet's number 2 for me.
Nice.
Ash.
So number 2 I have as Inception because, as I said before, I've not rewatched it in a while since I've been more active on Letterboxd, and I do fear that this one might be kind of like you were saying, Tyler, where it's like you start to question if it's a little overrated, and then maybe I won't feel that way, maybe I will, but I have it at 5 stars. That's what I've always had it at. I love this movie. It blew my mind when I first saw it in theaters, and I am a big Leo fan, obviously, so it just all kind of works for me. So 5 stars, 2nd place. We'll see what happens on rewatch.
Oh yeah, my number 2 is The Dark Knight. I feel like such a film bro, but I don't care. This movie's great. It's what I was saying to you, Ash, when you talked about it. It's a crime movie rather than a superhero film, and it's just done so perfectly. It still just lives up. Like it's still just like credited to be like one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Even though the 3rd like isn't as good, I still love the 3rd. I think Bane's great, but it's just such an immortalized film, and I don't think that anyone could really do what Nolan did then. I think the Batman, might be my favorite Batman movie, but I think the Dark Knight's just completely different. Like the Batman's more of a graphic novel, whilst the Dark Knight's more of like a mobster crime film, and that's why I love about it. It's like a completely different, more cleaner version of Gotham than it truly is in the comics, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But yeah, the number 2 is Dark Knight. But Tyler, what's your favorite? I think I know what it is, but what's your favorite?
Yeah, my number 1's Oppenheimer. So I've seen this one twice or three times, but I don't go to it on rewatch as much as Tenet. I mean, well, the obvious factor, like Oppenheimer's just a much longer film, but it's just also I feel like when I want a fun, cool, easy film to watch, I'll throw on like a sci-fi time travel heist as opposed to like a biopic, even though I think it is one of like the most well-crafted biopics ever. So it's like tough because like I rewatch other Nolan films a lot more, but I still don't think that's like a reason for me to move Oppenheimer down for my 1. So it's still there. Again, maybe Tenet could pass it one day. Maybe Prestige could on rewatch. Like there's so many films of his that I really love, but Oppenheimer is still going to be number 1 for me until something changes. Maybe the Odyssey overtakes it. I would love that.
It'd be so good if the Odyssey overtakes it.
Mm-hmm.
Ash.
Same. Oppenheimer. I love a historical drama type of movie. I think the performances here, especially by Cillian Murphy, is just one of my favorites in a Nolan movie. I think about this movie all the time. I actually want to rewatch it again soon. It's just, yeah, finding the time sometimes for a 3-hour movie. But yeah, I actually saw this in IMAX on my 30th birthday. It was like a big deal for me. I don't usually see IMAX films. I don't have one like right near me. So I think that added to the experience maybe, but I just think this movie is pretty perfect from start to finish. And yeah, I don't know if anything will surpass it. Maybe some of these on rewatch, but yeah, I think Oppenheimer is definitely a clear number one for me.
That's cool. Nice. My number one is Interstellar. This will always be like probably my favorite sci-fi of all time, and it's just been reaffirmed in the last couple of weeks. I went and saw it in IMAX in Sydney, and it just completely reaffirmed like that. Everything about this film just grips me. I think that Matthew McConaughey is just spectacular in this film. I don't think anyone could do this film but Matthew McConaughey. He's like that lovable cowboy astronaut like who is just so goddamn good. Like I'm in the next couple of years I'm going to get a couple of dogs and I'm going to call them Tars and Case. I've already got like a designer worked out Interstellar tattoo that I'm going to get in the next couple of months as well. Like I just absolutely adore this film. Everything about this film's fucking great, and it just every single time I rewatch it, it gets better and better. That scene where he walks in on his door, like two scenes of when he's like watching his kids grow up, of course, but when he walks in and his daughter's like gotten woken up for cryo sleep and she's super old and she's got her generations of family around her. That breaks me every time for like the good way. Like it's just like, sure, he's missed it, but he's successfully kept his whole family alive, which is why he did everything. Like that one moment just I think is so goddamn good. So yeah, Interstellar is my number one. And fun fact about Oppenheimer, I did the marketing for Australia for Oppenheimer, for online marketing, and they were so hush-hush about everything in the film. And the only creative they gave to us a couple months early was just like the look of the countdown clock in the Trinity test scene. So all of our creatives all online were just like a full countdown to the time where the first session was. So you go to any one of our sites that we were on, it was like a countdown to the bomb, which is kind of fucked up now that you kind of think about it. But it was like, it just looked really cool. But like they were so hush hush. But that's Nolan fair, because he was the same with Tenet, which I'll go into this. But it's going to be the same with every other film that Nolan makes, because I think Dark Knight really put Nolan as a blockbuster sort of director, of like they're one of those directors that, you know, you buy a ticket because it's directed by Nolan. But Oppenheimer really reaffirmed that, I feel, in the greater scheme, and Tenet wasn't no different. So it came out in 2020 during COVID. I still remember seeing this in limited sessions in my local cinema because they had like a quarter of the capacity restriction or something. So it really got restricted by how many people could see this in cinema. So it was directed by Christopher Nolan. Budget was $205 million, which is a big budget. But I know Odyssey is now like 350 it's gauging, which is going to be way more than that, including advertising. It's probably around 700, but oh well. Box office is 365 million, which during COVID, that's pretty goddamn great. So a little synopsis is: time runs out. Armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, the protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. So a fun fact here before I just go to your reviews is there was much secrecy surrounding the project before its release. Actor Robert Pattinson said that he was only allowed to read the script in a locked office at Warner Brothers Studios. His co-star Sir Michael Caine wasn't even able to read the entire screenplay. He was given the scenes only to read before shooting. And prior to the movie's release, Caine told the press that he had no idea what the film was even about, despite being a very close friend and frequent collaborator with Sir Christopher Nolan, which I think is hilarious. That's what Nolan has evolved to. He's like, it's the world of secrecy. No one there's all these, like, we got the cast kind of revealed for the Odyssey. We got no idea who's playing who. There's all these little rumors like, oh no, Tom Holland's the lead. And quick little tangent here. People that are like getting up in arms because Tom Holland might be the lead. Who gives a shit? Trust Nolan. Like, surely he's done too much already for you guys to just trust him. Like, how about we just wait till the film's actually shot so that we can judge it that way? But I don't know. People People are people. But what do you guys think of Tenet? What's your history of Tenet? And don't give your score just yet, but obviously, wait, we already have. Doesn't matter. We all love Tenet. But like, yeah, what's your history of Tenet? And what's your small little review of it before we get into it, Tyler?
Yeah, so first I didn't see it in theaters when it came out. First time I watched it was, I don't know, 2022. It looks like beginning of 2022, and I really liked it. I guess I gave it a 4.5. For some reason in my mind, I thought I gave it a 4 at my first watch back then. But now that I think about it, that might have been my first like letterbox watch, as opposed to, I think I might have seen it one time before that and was a little lower on it. But really liked it. Just watched it at home. But then when it was re-released in IMAX, it just like changed everything for me, and I just fell in love with it. It was just such an incredible experience seeing it in 70 millimeter. Just blew my mind. And then ever since then, like, it's always been available on planes whenever I'm traveling. So I'm just like, I'll just throw on Tenet.
Which is a wild movie to watch on a plane for one scene.
Yeah, at least that plane's like on the ground in that one scene. It's not like
true.
it's like, but it's not. I feel like Dark Knight Rises would be low key like a crazier plane movie to watch.
Crash of this plane, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, I've seen it a ton since, especially in 2024. Just ever since that IMAX re-release, just been rewatching it pretty regularly. I have a great time with it. Again, like, do I have to be like, I understand everything? No, but as the film says, you don't have to understand it. You just got to feel it. But it's just a fun vibes movie. Like, I have such a great time with it.
Hell yeah. Ash.
Yeah, I mean, my history is short. I just watched it for the first time last night. It hasn't even been 24 hours.
That's wild. That's awesome.
I think I started it at like almost 9 p.m. So I was up pretty late watching it. Yeah, and for you, Tyler, Harry told me he recommended, being sober, putting the subtitles on, all these things to make it better. I did listen to one of those. I did have the subtitles on, but that was pretty much the only thing I listened to. And I still enjoyed it. It's funny. I've never seen a James Bond movie in my life, but this movie just like immediately made me think this feels like the cool kind of atmosphere that a James Bond movie would probably have, mixed with like the Nolan kind of style that we kind of get with some of these big movies that he makes. So I don't know, it was kind of perfect for me. I just kept thinking these characters are just so cool. The world is so cool. I kept going like, no way, like what's happening? Like, I was just like in those moments where you're kind of like, I guess if you're watching it with someone who's seen it, like you're talking about, you want to see their reaction when you're like, oh, you're not ready for this. So I feel like I was having a lot of those moments where I was just in shock of all the twists and turns that were happening. But yeah, I thought it was great on first watch. I don't really know if I understand even half of it, but I don't really care. I just, I enjoyed my time with it. I feel like I kept up with the story fairly well. And I actually think the score for this one, there was a couple of the music choices I wasn't a super big fan of, but for the most part, I actually really like the score of this movie as well, as the performances are killer. Especially Robert Pattinson, I think it's one of my favorite characters he's played.
Yeah, hell yeah. Speaking of score, because this is the first Christopher Nolan film since The Prestige that he didn't score with Hans Zimmer. Because the composer turned down Nolan for the first time in over a decade to score a lifelong passion project, which was Dune, with Denny. So fucking fair enough.
Worked out.
Yeah, so he was replaced with Ludwig Göransson, who had recently won an Oscar for his work on Black Panther. So, and then since then, I think he went on to he did Oppenheimer, which is spectacular, the score. And Ludwig's quickly become just such a huge composer, and like rightfully so, because I believe he worked close with Damien Chazelle. For the, I'm not sure if he did Babylon. I should know that off the top of my head, but I know that he did like Whiplash and La La Land. Because I feel like I might just be talking out my ass, but I feel like they went to college together, Ludwig and Damien Chazelle, which is good fun. But yeah, I
know Ludwig was also like the guitarist for like Childish Gambino or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's just been everywhere, like, which is awesome. And then you look at him, you're like, dude, you'd be such a good addition to a blunt rotation. But yeah, he's awesome. But I've loved this. I've really liked this film when I first watched it, but I was like the same as you, Ash. I'm like, I think I understand half of it. But then each rewatch, you pick up more and more stuff. And I think it was like a couple of nights ago when I watched this for, I don't know, the 6th, 7th time, like everything started to fully click. And I've always really liked this film, but it's starting to just blow me away, this film. I think a lot of I was talking to my friend who really doesn't like this film, and he's like, I don't like it because the main character, you don't really know him at all. This is like, he's not really personified at all, and you don't really get a connection. I'm like, yeah, but kind of the point. I see this as like kind of you're reading a CIA file of an operation. That's how I kind of see it. And things are redacted, and they're redacted because you're not supposed to really connect with the person. You're supposed to connect with the entire tenet of the whole process, which is what I got out of it. And I think that John David Washington's brilliant in this, to be honest. I think everyone like gives praise to Robert Pattinson, rightfully so. He's awesome. But I think that John David Washington was like the perfect amount of like cool, but not like overindulgent in this film. I think he was like really calm, cool, collected, which I think is really cool. But yeah, before Ash watched it, Tyler, I was like, I think my prediction is going to be you're going to give it a 4. You're going to say you didn't understand much of it, which is fair enough because it's the first watch and it's a very convoluted movie. But then when me and Tyler are going through it, we're going to sell it to you and you're going to give it 4.5. So I was kind of close because last night I was in a movie and she messaged me. I've got the message and you just said, Harry, you were wrong. Tenet ... 1 star. And I think that you signed off then because
I did it on purpose.
Yeah, because I got fucking triggered and I go, ha 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 ha. I just don't believe you. I see through you, Ash. You're a smart person. Plus, I'm never wrong. And then like 10 minutes go by and I'm in a movie. I'm like, just saw your Letterboxd review. Nice try, woman. I'm like, oh man, I got triggered so hard. But yeah, so I'm glad we're on the same page. But let's get into it. I'm going to stop periodically, but if you had anything to say, of course, jump in. But Ash, if you have anything to say, like to reaffirm who these characters are, because there's a lot of characters, all their names are so fucking weird. So please stop me if you ever want to. A CIA agent known simply as the Protagonist, great name. John David Washington participates in an extraction operation in the Kiev. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm bad with geography. So. Yeah, Kiev Opera House. Ukrainian forces have made the CIA operative that's there and stage a hostage situation to kill that said operative. The protagonist's instructions is to bring him in or kill him. After seizing an artifact, a masked soldier wearing a red trinket saves his life by unfiring a bullet through a gunman, which already this entire film, you're like, okay, things are weird. There's a massive sci-fi element already. This is sick. I don't know what this is. The protagonist is then captured by mercenaries. He's tortured and consumes cyanide. He then awakens to learn that the cyanide was a test of loyalty. His team had been killed and the artifact is lost. This entire thing was kind of a test. The protagonist is recruited by an organization simply known as Tenet. Faye, played by Martin Donovan, who's just always the CIA guy, is the protagonist's CIA boss, and he recruits him into Tenet. A scientist, Barbara, also my mum's name, so this movie's wild, briefs him in on a bullet with inverted entropy, meaning that they move backwards in time. She believes that they are manufactured in the future, and other inverted objects seem to be remnants of a war in the future. Barbara feels the future is planning something, but the past don't know it yet, which, yeah, of course. The protagonist meets Neil, played by Robert Pattinson, through a CIA contact, and they trace the inverted bullets to the arms dealer Priya Singh, played by Dimple Kapadia, in Mumbai. They learn that Priya is a member of Tenet, and her cartridges were purchased and inverted by Russian oligarch Andrei Sator. Jesus, all these names are fucking wild. Played by Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth Branagh is awesome in this. Did you know that he learnt how to speak backwards, but he also has learnt how to speak backwards with a Russian accent? That's dedication. Wow. That's a Macbeth actor right there. That's unreal. Yeah. She says that she sold Sator normal cartridges, but somehow he's been getting them inverted. Sator is expected to be a broker between our time and the future. Priya gives him a connect to Sir Michael Crosby, which is Michael Caine, who's just a British intelligence officer. I love his little bit in here because he's just like in and out, and you're like, I believe he's an old school British intelligence officer. Crosby says that Sator grew up in a secret Soviet city known as Starsek 12. In the 70s, it had 200,000 people, and it was then abandoned. It was abandoned after some sort of accident. It was being used for underground tests, and one explosion showed up on their sensors the same day as that Kiev siege in that opera house. So Crosby says that Sator's wife, Catherine, also known as Kat throughout this, authenticated a fake Goya, which is like a famous drawing. Yeah, made by Apro, which is one of her close friends, for her auction house, and sold it to her husband Sator. So it was a fake. Crosby thinks that Kat is close to Apro. Kat is now estranged from Sator, who has custody of their child. So this is already convoluted, I know. But the whole point is inverted bullets. They got the materials traced back to Priya in Mumbai. Mumbai says that she sold those. They weren't inverted. They sold those to Sator. Sator somehow made it inverted. They think that he has connections with the future. And there's going to be a war in the future. We've got to get to Sator, see what he knows. So you guys, stop in there. Do you guys have anything to add on this first part? Because I think this is one of the best openings of any Nolan film. That whole opera house sequence, I think, is exhilarating. If they put the gas in and everyone just straight away goes limp, I think is awesome. And you get that little... I love the test scene as well with John David Washington, and it really starts to see who he is as an actor in this film. Yeah, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, what I really love, and it's kind of hard film to talk about without and I'll try not to talk about the rest of it, but I mean it's in the name Tenet. A lot of it's reverse and forward at the same time. So I love that. Just when you're introduced to Robert Pattinson's character, he's clearly more in the know than John David Washington. He's comfortable around them, and initially on your first watch, or at least during the first half of the movie, you're oh, he's probably just a swab guy. But then you kind of realize it's oh, it makes a lot of sense why he's treating this guy as a buddy who they've been doing this together for years, and he knows his drink order and knows all these things.
Yeah, so good.
On first watch, you're oh, he's just like you're saying, a CIA. He got read in, he knows all this stuff, but no, actually, it's just you get to know why. But I think it plays so well, and it's perfect, like you said too, with John David Washington as casting. I don't love him as an actor. I think he's kind of stiff, but I think that's what you need in this movie.
Agreed.
Because Robert Pattinson's the complete opposite, where he's so suave, sophisticated, that it just gives that perfect clash where John David Washington's clearly such a fish out of water, what the hell's going on, whereas Robert Pattinson's knows everything and is calm, cool, collected. But yeah, I think the first half, and I think Kenneth Branagh is such an interesting choice too, because obviously he's I was gonna say British, but I believe he might be Irish, because I know he directed Belfast, which is a very Irish film, so I'd imagine he's probably Irish. But playing a Russian dude, and he learned Russian accents forward and backwards, and just crazy. He's so intimidating in this, which is not a character I would ever think would be. But so I guess props to him for acting well, because there's moments in this movie where I'm genuinely scared of him, which before this I would never think he would ever be an actor that would be able to sell that.
Yeah, agree. He is British. He was born in... Yeah, you're right. Okay. He was born in Belfast. He was also used to be married to Emma Thompson. That's a wild little...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, from 1989 to 1995. But Ash, anything to add here?
Yeah, I feel my perspective is so different, because you're saying, I only watched it for the first time. So a lot of these things, I didn't really think twice about it. As far as Neil's character, I really didn't question it too much. I just assumed it was his job to know information, or, research people or something, or I don't know. But up until the point where you kind of understand how the whole thing went down, even all the way back to their initial break-in. Once you know all that, it makes so much sense, all these little scenes that are leading up to it. But I'd be curious to watch it again, because I think now I will notice little signs a little bit better. But yeah, I love the introduction. I think that opening is so killer. I mean, it's just I was just what is happening? It had me hooked immediately. And then even the title card is really cool looking when it comes up. So yeah, I was sat once I saw that opening. I was very excited. Just a movie that keeps you exhilarated the whole time, which I love. I'm not a huge action movie person, but I think when it's in this vein, it works really well for me. And I am a sucker for a time or sci-fi element. So I think it was just the perfect recipe. But yeah, I think John David Washington is good here. I haven't seen too much of his work. I like him in BlacKkKlansman a lot, but I don't really know much outside of that. I think he is maybe a little monotone at times as this character, but it kind of, to me, it fit with his personality and kind of the lack of emotion and getting to know him as a character. It made sense, I guess, to me, so it didn't bother me. But I can see maybe that being a complaint for some people.
Yeah, I haven't seen BlacKkKlansman, to be fair, which I imagine is probably up there with his best. But I've only seen him in this and then Amsterdam, and I mean, Amsterdam might not be his fault, but I was man, this dude's got no chops. But again, I think that whole movie was just a mess. So
I was about to say, I fucking hated Amsterdam.
Yeah, that movie stunk.
Yeah, so does David O. Russell, so I'm glad that movie sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to watch BlacKkKlansman. That's great. He's also, not many people like this movie. I fucking loved it. The creator, I'm but I love the But like I know it's a forgettable film, but I just love sci-fi, so like I loved that film. But yeah, I agree. I think you said it perfectly, Tyler, that he's very like a very stagnant sort of actor. He just doesn't give anything incredible. But I think that's what this film needed, because I agree that like Robert Pattinson is that stereotypical spy guy. And that's why I think this movie really relies on multiple watches, Ash, because what you were saying that like you didn't really pick up anything from Robert Pattinson because he's a spy. He would know this sort of information. I like totally. But like that's why you first watch it like, oh, he's just researched his target, which is the protagonist. Or he's just like he'll take a Diet Coke. He's like I prefer soda water. He goes, no, you don't. Like he would know that. But it's like no. And then you watch it again, you're like, no, they've been friends for years. That's why he knows it. And like so like after the second rewatch you'll like pick up on heaps of different things on the like second watch. Like even when they're driving the BMW on the highway and he looks at the side mirror and it's like cracked, and you immediately like it focuses on that and you're immediately like, oh, something's gonna happen there, and then like the car hits that later, an inverted car hits it. So it's like little things like that. You pick up on so much stuff, and I think this movie's mad. This movie's so cool. Let's continue. In London, the protagonist approaches Sator's estranged wife, Kat, who... dude, Sator is punching hard, but it is what it is. Played by Elizabeth Debicki. She's great in this movie. I think she's fantastic. She tells him that Sator purchased the drawing from the forger Aparo, and is using Kat's authentication as blackmail to control her in her relationship, which is a wild thing to control her with, but yep. Until that painting is with Sator, she cannot help the protagonist. She thinks that Sator thinks that Kat betrayed him, but she claims that she didn't know that the Gautier was a fake. The protagonist offers to retrieve the painting in exchange for a meeting with Sator. The protagonist and Neil plot to steal the drawing from a Freeport storage facility in the Oslo airport. And people that don't know what a Freeport is, it's kind of like a warehouse that rich people use to go look at their artifacts and to see what they are in an airport without paying taxes, importation taxes. They just keep them at the airport. It's a little... Fucking rich people, dude.
It's so crazy.
It's so fucking wild that that's a real thing. And like when they go in there and they're like, the guy's just like, hey, that's why people use us, because there's no other thing that we value more than your property. And it's like
your property,
your own life. That's like you got.
That's
dude,
also how America really thinks as well.
Dude, yeah, go touch grass, bruh. But is what it is. They use Mahir, which is Himish Patel. This is what we were talking about last week, Ash. He's great in this. To crash a plane into the rear wall of the Freeport to gain access, or mainly also to create a diversion. Inside Sator's vault, they fend off two masked men who seemingly emerge from a strange device. Afterwards, Priya explains that the device is a turnstile, a machine that it can invert the entropy of objects and people, and that the masked men were actually the same person traveling in opposite directions in time. This is when I first saw this film, I couldn't grasp this at all. I was like, wait, no, but there's two people. I was like, no, it's the same person, different. But one's moving forward, one's moving backwards. I was like, but once you see, oh man, once it clicks, it's so cool. Sator has been given this machine by the future, but the purpose is unknown. So a fun fact here, I'm sure everyone knows this, the production team purchased and then crashed a real 747 airplane into a hangar. So the stunts were all practical effects and no visual effects or CGI. So Sir Christopher Nolan had originally planned to use miniatures and the set pieces builds. However, when scouting of locations in Victorville, California, I say this to Ash all the time, Tyler, the names of towns in your guys' country is wild. Victorville, that's on there. That's you're on notice
down in
there.
Southern California, I think.
You're on notice there. So scouting for locations in Victorville, the team discovered a massive array of old planes, and it actually became apparent that it'd be way more cost effective if they just bought a real plane of the real size and performed the sequence with a real camera. Like, that's hilarious. Mm-hmm. So there's like,
did no one ever stop to ask Christopher Nolan, like, but what if the first time you crash the plane, like, you mess up and you have to do it again? Then is it more cost effective? Like,
yeah.
But I mean, it's awesome. But I think I feel like he just gotten to the point where like they'll listen to whatever he says, but he's like, yeah, it's cheaper. And they're like, oh, I guess that's true. And then I guess no one ever thought like, and probably until the day it was happening, like some producers like, shit, if this doesn't work, we have to do it again. This budget's going to grow. Yeah. This COVID release, this is going to be good. But no, it's so cool.
Yeah, that's really true. It's just like, what happens if we fail? Goes, but we won't. Like, it's such a Nolan thing to do. He loves that sort of shit, though. You can tell. Like, I can't wait till he actually grows a giant serpent for Odyssey. So that'll be good fun. But yeah, so that was a great scene. I'll stop in a sec to get your thoughts on that. I'll just do one more little bit. So on the Amalfi Coast in Italy, Kat introduces the protagonist to Sato and learns the drawing is intact. He had removed it from the vault before the attack because Sato kind of got the hunch, and you can kind of get the impression that like people from the future is telling him to remove the painting. Sato plans to kill the protagonist, but the protagonist saves Sato's life after Kat attempts to drown him while sailing, which is a wild thing. I love that. It's like, see you in hell, Sato or Andre. Sato and the protagonist strike a partnership to retrieve a case that supposedly contains plutonium-241, which was also the objective of Sato's attack in Kiev. Sato reveals that he was assigned to collect plutonium from an exploded warhead in Task 12, the city that he was from, and that's where he found a box from the future for the first time. It's implied, but Sato doesn't reveal that to the protagonist. The protagonist secretly watches Sato while on his yacht and sees how he gets coordinates from where to pick up artifacts, and then sends his team to retrieve them, who delivers to Sato on his yacht. In Tallinn, the protagonist and Neil ambush a convoy and steal the case, which actually contains the artifact that was lost in Kiev. But they are ambushed by an inverted Sato that, like, you can see him with the face mask, by inverted Sato that's holding Kat hostage. The protagonist gives the empty case to Sato, who retreats after receiving it. The protagonist rescues Kat, but she's soon captured and taken to a warehouse with a turnstile. So we'll stop there before we get to the turnstile warehouse bit, because that's where that whole highway chase scene happens, which is fucking so cool. But Ash, I want to start with you. Like, give me your thoughts on the airplane hangar scene, and like straight away, like when you see that first highway chase of where you see the inverted Sato, that's kind of where things start to click of like the turning back time sort of thing. Yeah, what was going through your head?
That's a loaded question.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, it is convoluted, but I do think it is still easy to follow the characters that you're saying. There's so many, like, you may not remember them. Like, I do remember, like, I remember everybody. I remember all the setup of everything really well. It's more just, I don't think I'm smart enough to fully understand the science behind the time part of it, but I still thought it was really fucking cool. I mean, the idea of most time travel movies, I feel like, is you go back in time and you're there, or you go forward in time and you're there, and you might run into your future self, but it's all like on this really like linear timeline. Whereas this movie is like introduces like time. It's not like a classic time travel movie. It's moving forward and backwards throughout like time, but it's done in such a unique way that I personally feel like is more believable. Like if time travel actually did exist, I feel like it would be more in the realm of something like this, where they're actually just like moving backwards and forwards through time. Kind of simultaneous. It's very confusing, but I thought it was really fucking cool. The scene when he has her held hostage, I was just completely speechless. The whole way they show one side of the coin, then they show you the other side, and you see the different colors. Like, it literally was blowing my mind. If I'm being honest, I absolutely loved it, and I don't know what else. I'm honestly kind of just like at a loss for words, because it's just so cool. The whole thing is just so cool. But yeah, I think it's just really building up to obviously what comes next, which I didn't know. But once it all clicked, I was like, oh my God, that's even cooler.
Yeah.
Like,
Hell yeah.
It's honestly mind blowing. But yeah, the plane crash, I was actually wondering if that was real, because I know Christopher Nolan doesn't like to use CGI unless, like he doesn't really like to use it. So I kind of figured it was a real crash sequence.
Yeah.
So that's wild.
It's going to be interesting how he makes Odyssey, because he's going to need to use CGI.
Yeah, like there's just no way. I don't think this movie has some CGI. There's no way this is all.
Yeah, there's
right? Like,
I've got a fact about that in a sec for you. But you mentioned the science behind it. So although this film is not meant to be scientifically accurate, it's based roughly on actual physics. So before filming, Nolan asked physicist Kip Thorne, who'd previously worked with on Interstellar, to read through the screenplay and help out with concepts, which is really cool. And you also talked about the stunts that in the film specifically for that highway. Patterson wanted to do his own stunts, so he was actually, that whole highway sequence, it was Patterson driving, and he goes, there was a massive IMAX rig on the front of his car. He's like, we couldn't see up front. So he's like, we couldn't see out the front, and if we turned slightly, the camera would drag onto the ground. So he just have to go straight, and like he just have to pray, and like I'm sure there was like a bunch of different sort of like safety precautions, but I think that's pretty awesome. Especially like if you're in a Nolan film, just do the stunts. Just fucking do the
I was kind of
stunts.
wondering about that with the bungee jumping, even, which I didn't bring up in the last section, but I absolutely love that they had a conversation about it and then they actually did it. And you just see like Robert Pattinson like fly over in the background. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
Also, Sater, I do think he is a terrifying man, and
He's
the actor does a phenomenal job. Like there's some moments with him and Elizabeth Debicki, I was just like, this guy is fucking pure evil. Like literally when he says no one, I can't have you, no one can, like I didn't take that to mean anything, but like he is legit like demented and he plays it so well.
He's horrifying, but he's also like he's not like unterrified of everyone. Like he doesn't think that he's invincible.
He's still human, but he's terrifying. Yeah.
Like when he comes in, he's just like, we're going to talk about today, and he brings out his belt and starts putting the fucking cufflinks into his belt, and then she's like, you won't do that because I'll scream and he'll hear and he'll come in, and that's what makes him stop. Like, so he doesn't think that he's invincible, but like, and then you realize like what's going to happen if he does die, which is fucking wild. But Tyler, anything to add on to the airplane scene in the first part of the highway chase?
No, yeah, I mean it's cool that they do their own stunts. I know John David Washington also was like he trained to do like the fighting scenes when he's fighting with himself like backwards too. So like similar to Andre Sator learned to speak backwards. Like John David Washington was practicing doing action sequences backwards. And then Sator is so menacing and so terrifying, and like I don't know if it would make sense. Like if a bullet would technically like hurt more going in reverse through you, but it looks way more painful out of the movie.
Yeah, like, something about it. It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe because I guess if it's going through you forwards, you got like a point that'll help you a little bit, whereas backwards it's not. I don't know, but it just always looks so much more painful in that scene when like he's so menacing and he reverse shoots Elizabeth Debicki, and it's like, damn.
Yeah, it's awesome because in the airport scene where he's fighting like the masked person, John David Washington's fighting the masked person, and you see those like bullets come like next to his head, and you like. And you think to yourself, you're like, oh, like, what would actually happen if that happens? But you go back to when he was talking to the scientist with Barbara, and she was like, oh, if you get hit by an inverted bullet, it's going to fuck you up. Like, she's like, so yeah, that's a very, very good point. But let's get on to the warehouse scene, because it's like one of my favorite scenes in this entire film is, in the warehouse, the inverted Sator shoots Kat with an inverted round, while the non-inverted Sator demands the location of the artifact. Tenet operatives led by Ives, which is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, which I don't know, is it just me or was like a lot of Nolan films now just have like a random main actor just turn up towards the end of the film. Like it might just be right after I watched Interstellar. I'm like, Matt Damon turns up, then like Aaron Taylor Johnson turns up, and I think the same thing happened in Casey Affleck turns up in
and Remy Malek and Oppenheimer.
Remy Malek,
he always kind of does that.
Yeah, it's like a little like little cameo or something. But like, I love Aaron Taylor Johnson, to be honest. I'm sad that he's probably not going to be Bond. But yeah, when he turns up and he arrives and rescues the protagonist, and Sator escapes in the turnstile, the group takes Kat through the turnstile, inverting them and reversing Kat's bullet wound. The now inverted protagonist travels back through time to the ambush site. He's briefed not to touch his regular self, and means that if particles of himself come in contact, it means annihilation. Cold ass line, fuck yeah. Where he goes back to the ambush site where he attempts to retrieve the artifact, but is intercepted by Sator. Sator gets the artifact from the reverse protagonist. It was in the reverse's protagonist's car. The reversed protagonist's car is overturned, catches fire, but reverses Neil's. But the reversed Neil saves him and reveals that he's actually a member of Tenet, and the whole time he's known this. So fun fact here is what I've said, that in addition to performing in addition to performing his stunts backwards, the main cast also learned how to speak their roles in reverse. Kenneth Branagh not only learned how to speak backwards, but he learned to do it in the Russian accent, which is just so respectable. The guy knows ball. And is Kenneth Branagh in Odyssey? Do we know that? Because
he's not showing currently, but he was in Oppenheimer, wasn't he?
I think he was in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, he was like his professor when he was in
That's
Germany
right.
or something.
Yeah, the one that was going to eat the apple and then he stopped eating.
Yeah,
That's right.
yep,
And he was also
Mhm.
in Dunkirk. He was one of the
I haven't
generals
seen
in
that one.
Dunkirk. See,
yep.
like Nolan and Branagh love each other, so that's good. I love Kenneth Branagh. I think he's great, except for the fucking Clouseau films, whatever they're like.
I just
The
think of Harry Potter.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's hilarious. I'm rereading all the Harry Potters at the moment. I'm in Chamber of Secrets. So whenever I hear Gilderoy Lockhart, I'm always thinking Kenneth Branagh. Guy's got range, doesn't he? Jesus. The protagonists, Neil and Kat, travel back through time to the free port in Oslo, which is the airport. The protagonist fights his past self. The two guys who emerged inside the free port were basically Neil and the protagonist. But the person that was fighting was both the protagonist. They enter the turnstile and reverts, followed by Neil and Kat. Later, Priya explains that Sator is collecting the artifacts to assemble an algorithm, which is capable of catastrophically inverting the entropy of the Earth. For some reasons, the future want to destroy the entire past of humanity. A scientist in the future has created an algorithm to reverse the entropy of the world. However, she's concerned that by destroying the past, they destroy themselves. So she split the algorithm into 9 sections and hides them in 9 bombs in the past. Because she says the most effective way to hide something is to hide it in the past. So Sator's lifelong mission was to reassemble the algorithm, financed and guided by the future. And the bomb is at Starsik. The bomb at Starsik was the start of it, which is the city that Sator grew up in. So Kat reveals that Sator is dying from pancreatic cancer. She says that he can't die yet because he's already dying. They learn that Sator is using a dead man switch to trigger the algorithm, the health band on his wrist, which will trigger the algorithm the second that his heart stops. So throughout the film, he's really conscious on his heartbeat. And you find out why. So Kat believes that Sator will travel back in time and commit suicide during the vacation in Vietnam so that the world will die with him being at the last moment that he was happy. The protagonist, Neil and Kat and Tenet troops travel back in time where Kat disguises herself as her past self to keep Sator alive long enough for Tenet to secure the algorithm. Tenet tracks the algorithm to Starsik 12, the nuclear explosion noticed on the same day that the Kiev siege at the beginning of the film, and because that was triggered by the algorithm, where it was heavily guarded. They launch a temporal pincer movement, fucking sick, with now inverted red troops and non-inverted red troops and inverted blue troops making a simultaneous assault. Coolest shit ever. I feel like when Nolan thought of this film, this was the first part that he thought of. It's people going back through time, people going through time normally, attack one thing at the same time. I think is so cool. And it all comes from when Ives, Aaron Taylor Johnson, was doing his briefing. He's like, and the inverted troopers are going to be getting the same briefing in an hour's time. I think that's so cool. Mm-hmm. At a critical moment, an inverted blue soldier wearing a red trinket sacrifices himself to save the protagonist and Ives as they get into the underground bunker to stop the nuclear explosion. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, Kat kills Sator. Sator calls protagonist in Starsik 12 and reveals that he's helping the future. The past was responsible for the rising oceans and the dry rivers. They had no choice but to reverse time. Just as protagonist secures the algorithm. It's literally like Indiana Jones in the hat. It's just fucking close. The protagonists, Neil and Ives, break up the algorithm and part ways. The protagonist notices that Neil is wearing the red trinket, and you realize that that's the person that saves him in the beginning of the film. Neil reveals that he was recruited by the protagonist in the future, and that this mission, from his perspective, is the end of a long friendship. Which is great. Neil has this great line. He goes, "For me, it's the end. For you, it's the beautiful beginning." And it's like, that's such a... Oh, man, it's sick. Since she knows too much, Priya attempts to have a cat assassinated, but she's killed by the protagonist, who realizes that he is the mastermind behind Tenet. So scientific accuracy, the film's plot revolves around reversing the entropy of things and people, resulting in time's reversibility. Tenet makes reference to physics concepts, including annihilation, the second laws of thermodynamics, Maxwell's demon, and Fenway and Wheeler's notion of one electron universe. But Christopher Nolan states in this film press notes that, quote, "We're not going to make any case for this being scientifically accurate." So fair enough, this movie's just there because it's fucking cool. So that is Tenet. My quick review, I'm giving this 4.5. I can see this going up to 5 on the next rewatch. This keeps just going up and up. I remember watching it the first time, it's gone to it was 3.5, and every single time I've watched it, it's just getting better and better. This film, I mean this in the perfect way possible. It just relies on rewatches because you pick up so much more stuff and you see just how intricate and perfectly placed this movie is. You said it best, Tyler. I think this movie is so rewatchable. I think this movie is cool as shit. I think it's perfectly cast. I love John David Washington in this film specifically. And yeah, I think this movie's great. This movie's so cool. Tyler, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this final third is just phenomenal stuff. And I think the two like key lines of this movie for me is one is when he first learns about the bullet's entropy. She's like, you don't have to understand it, just feel it. And then I think the second key line for like audiences during the briefing is when Aaron Taylor Johnson, like John David at Washington, asked him like a question logistically, and he's like, "That's need to know information, and you don't." It's just like both those lines just tell the audience, it's like, just feel this movie, have a great time with it. It's an awesome movie. Like Christopher Nolan's a genius in the sense that like if you try and piece stuff together and like he has his maps out there of how Tenet all works, like I know it's not scientifically accurate, but like there's logic there that makes the movie make sense. Mm-hmm. But he clearly tells the audience multiple times, like, if you're like sitting there trying to understand how this is all working, you're like missing the complete point of what I'm trying to do here. And that final act is just so brilliant. Like the way the forward and reverse are going at the same time. And then you have Robert Pattinson near the end. Basically, when they kind of accomplish the mission, because obviously like the forward people accomplish it, and they have the final pieces that just split up, and then they kind of go their separate ways. That's when you find out that they've been working together this whole time. Robert Pattinson kind of turns to Aaron Taylor Johnson. He's like, do you think that was me? Basically, he was like, was that me in there that broke the lock for us to like help us? Like, otherwise we were screwed. We were gonna die. And then he's like, yeah, I don't really know anyone else who would have pulled off something like that. So he's like, well, I guess that seals it. Like, I gotta now go back in time because Robert Pattinson in the final one was on both teams, basically the red and blue team. He went both ways, and that's kind of the key link there. You kind of realize like he realizes at the end of his being on the red team and the blue team, whatever one was going forward with John David Washington, it's like, oh yeah, that was actually me that must have went back and switched teams and then actually broke the lock. So I got to go flip teams and go do the reverse of this in order for it to ever work. So just crazy. Like Christopher Nolan's mind is so incredible. I know he's worked on several of his screenplays like Memento and other ones with his brother, Jonathan Nolan. So I don't know if this is one they worked together as well, but that family just very creative, incredible final scene. It's just so fun. Like this final act is just such a fun ride to strap into. The how it looks just with the whole like actual warfare going on is incredible, but then just have these moments where you have no clue how things are going to shake out. And like you have the two Elizabeth Debicki's as well. Like she sees someone jumping off the boat and she's like, who the hell is that? And she realizes like, oh, it was actually herself. Like such a genius movie. And I love everything about the final act, especially, how he goes and, saves Elizabeth Debicki as well. Just awesome stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Christopher Nolan's the sole writer for this film.
Gotcha.
Which makes it even more impressive, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Ash.
Yeah, no, I think those two lines that you mentioned, that's exactly how I understood it. Like as an audience member, was just like not trying to dig into it too much. I mean, I did find it interesting. And I do find like even the paradox that Neil brings up of like, if you go back in time and kill your grandpa, how is that possible? Because you'd never be alive kind of thing. Like this idea of time and the way that it works in like the universe is something people always want to try to figure out. And I think it's kind of just cool how they remind you multiple times of just like, do not try to dissect this, just go along for the ride. And it's like even something that's said to characters multiple times. So it's just kind of a fun way to try to remind the audience not to be thinking too much about the science behind it. But yet they still managed to give so many interesting aspects of the science within the film. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the scene where the two teams are going, I mean, that's probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a screen.
It's so cool, isn't it?
It's just absolutely mind-boggling. I don't know how they made it look so legitimate. Like it doesn't look obvious that it's just like some computer-generated thing that they did. Like it looks really legit. So I give them props for that. And then yeah, for me at least, obviously it's my first time. The full circle moment at the end, finding out, he hired him, and like even seeing the backpack. Like I noticed the little symbol on the backpack, and I was like, I wonder who that is. And then like it's just all these little like aha moments. Mm-hmm. That I guess it's kind of a special experience because obviously when you watch a film like this, you only get that experience one time watching it for the first time. So I absolutely loved it. I honestly was going into it very low expectations because I've seen people give it 1 star, some people give it 5 stars. I had no idea what to expect, but it was just something that I enjoyed the entire ride of. The audio didn't bother me enough to bring down my score. I don't know if my sound bar is just like decent, but I didn't find that it was that bad.
I thought this rewatch, like, the audio was the best that I'd seen. I just remember watching this in the cinema, and there was like specific scenes, like when he first meets Elizabeth Debicki in the restaurant. I couldn't understand a fucking word that he was saying because the audio mixing was a bit wild.
For sure. But there's definitely some parts where it's not perfect. Like sometimes the music gets way louder than the dialogue, and there's like some weird like multi-music mixing going. There's definitely some odd scenes, but it doesn't take away from the overall impact that the film has of like how good it is. I don't think, at least.
Yeah, I remember Nolan came out and he's just like, no, it was meant to be like that. He said something like, he's like, oh no, there's a reason behind why the audio mixing is the way it is. He like, just
interesting.
I was like, I love you, Chris. Just make it so that we can hear shit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, but 4.5 for me on first watch, which I think is pretty great. I was not expecting that. I can definitely see this climbing into that top 5 over time. And I'm excited to rewatch it now, because now I just want to kind of pick out things from earlier on, that indicate what's going to happen. And I just want to say, I love Kat's character. I think that she's badass.
Awesome. She's awesome.
I love that the ending is her just walking with her son. Like she finally, Nolan does this all the time. There's always this like emotional beat in his movies, even if it's like quick. And I love that this one is like the only emotional thing in this entire film is this mother and her son. And it's not even really that intertwined in the story, but I love that it's enough to where protagonist wants to help her get her life where she, wants to have it and deserves to have it. And then they just walk together, and that's it. That's the end. I absolutely love that. I think it's a perfect ending.
Yeah, there's like multiple moments throughout this film that you touched on that like is all about foreshadowing. But one of the best ones I think is when she's talking about the day in Vietnam, where she hasn't gone back in time yet, but she's talking about how her husband always cheated on her and everything like that. She goes, I was going back to the boat and I saw a woman dive off the side of it, and she just looked so free. And I was like, and then like at the end, she's like, she is free, and like from everything. So like it's just a really good bit. But yeah, she's very much like the emotional like sort of compass of the entire film. Of like, because he gives her the ultimatum, it's like, you can leave me, but you will never, like, as long as you never see your son again. And she's like, but there was a moment where I considered it, and he noticed that in my eyes, and that's what he has over me. And you're like, that's heavy as fuck.
It's heavy.
This movie's unreal. But that is Tenet. So next week we are watching Pleasantville, which I've never seen. So we're going from a first time watch for Ash, and I've never seen it. Have you ever seen that, Tyler? Pleasantville?
I have not. No.
Yeah, I feel like it's a fake film, but we'll find out next week.
It's great. Reese Witherspoon and Tobey Maguire go back to a television show from the 50s.
Oh, I'm already sold. This kind of sounds like Blast from the Past with Brendan Fraser.
It's done better as far as like the writing and everything. It's
nice. But before we go, let's do a quick game. A little movie draft, of course. We've got Tyler here, of course. He's done every single subject under the sun for a movie draft on Real Talk. But we're doing best movie character name, especially from this film, with the main character being the protagonist. Fucking badass name. I love how on the nose throughout the film he's like, I'm the protagonist of this story. Like, okay. But I think this is really cool. I've done a random wheeled name generator. Tyler will be first, then Ash, and then myself. 5 rounds, do normal snake draft. So Tyler, for your first pick, best movie character names, what do you pick?
Oh gosh, first pick.
There's like 17 that you could take for the first one, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't really know what I have, like a list here that I prepped. I don't really know if one is like jumping out at me more than the others, but I'll just start off the bat with Marty McFly.
Yeah,
that's a name that
classic.
One of our mutual friends, Marty McFly, kind of based her name off of it. And Marty McFly, awesome name, just cool name, perfect for like his cool guy attitude of just like this dude going back in time, thinks he's too cool for his parents, and he goes back to the future, initially back to the past, and kind of realizes what his parents are all about and how to adapt to life back then. And then great name.
This just flows off the tongue as well. It could be a superhero name. Ash.
Oh gosh, I just don't know what direction to go. There's not really a wrong answer.
There's not. There's just like 70 great names.
I think I'm gonna have to just get one off from my favorite movie of all time. So I'll do Vincent Vega. I think it's a better name. Mia Wallace is my favorite character of all time, but I don't think her name is quite as cool. But I just think his name associated with the way his character behaves is just one of my favorite names in the movie.
I love that. That's awesome. I'm going to go with what I'm named after, which is Indiana Jones. My mum's favorite movie is Temple of Doom, wildly. So I'm named after Harrison Ford. So Indiana Jones is, I think, one of the coolest names of all time. Back to back, I'm going to go Maximus Decimus Meridius from Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, is your name Harrison or is
Yeah,
it Harry?
Harrison.
It is Harrison.
Yeah.
Did not know this about you.
I only get called Harrison if I'm in trouble.
Good to know. Nice.
Ash, your second pick.
Okay, I'm not writing that entire thing, by the way.
I got it. Don't worry. I got them all down. Don't worry. I just copied and pasted it. I got a list.
Let's see. I don't know. Do I? I have to take something from the Lord of the Rings franchise here. I just have to figure out which one. I think I'm gonna go with Samwise Gamgee. I think that one is like the weirdest, but like the most fun, and I also just love his character. So yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the correct answer, to be honest, from Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler, back to back.
All right. I will go with Willy Wonka.
Oh,
It's a
fuck
nice,
yeah, man. Damn,
whimsical name, perfect for the vibes. It's someone who is a chocolatier empire. And then we'll run it back with a completely opposite type of name. We'll go Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So we'll stick with I think, Darth, just both parts that Darth Vader is perfectly menacing and just great for building up his character for what it is.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Ash.
Nice. Okay. We're only doing 5, right?
Yeah, just 5.
Let's see. I think I'm gonna go with a comedy. I think last time I did a draft like this, I took a specific one, but I'm gonna take something different now. I'm gonna go with Ace Ventura.
That was on my list. That's a great name.
Good one. Great one.
Yeah. Fits Jim Carrey perfectly.
Oh, hell yeah. That was high on my list for sure. I'm going to go back to back. I'm going to go kind of they're very similar. I'm going to go the dude from Big Lebowski.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go the bride from Kill Bill.
There you go. Very in line with the protagonist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's more like an aura pick than a name pick, you know?
It's funny to watch the movie with subtitles on because every time he would talk, it would say like protagonist, like he tells you which character is talking, and then he'd say the line, "I'm the protagonist," and then it's funny to watch it with that on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I remember watching the film for the first time, and I hated those lines. I'm like, do we know? We know, but like then you rewatch it again and again, and you're like, okay, and it's actually great.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of continuing on with some repetition here, so I'm gonna go with Donnie Darko.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
That's a cool name.
There's something about alliteration in names that just they just do it.
So these would be my last 2 picks, right?
Your last 2, yeah, buddy.
I will go with a Buzz Lightyear.
Damn it! I thought it was gonna be a sneaky 5th.
I think it's just an epic name, Buzz Lightyear, and then we'll wrap it up with James Bond.
Damn it!
Classic, iconic name, suave spy, perfect name for like a suave spy. James
Absolutely,
Bond.
that's like his name is like part of the whole thing. It's like the name is Bond, James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I thought I could get that. Nice one. That's great.
Okay. My last pick is a bit of a wild card,
I love
but somebody just recently posted about this movie, and I actually recently rewatched it like a month ago. I'm gonna take War and Peace from Sky High. I think that is the most like ridiculous name in a superhero movie, and I love it so much.
War and Peace. I didn't even.
War and Peace.
That's
yeah.
hilarious. That is great. That's fantastic. Oh wow. Damn. I thought I could nab James Bond somehow, but nice one. I'm going to go with second favorite film of all time, which is The Matrix. I'm going to go Neo, just because it's an anagram for the one. I think that I've always thought that's just so needlessly cool. So yeah, I'm going for my 5th round, The Matrix. So for Tyler, you did Marty McFly, Back to the Future, Willy Wonka from Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory, Darth Vader, Star Wars, Buzz Lightyear, Toy Story, and James Bond from any of the James Bonds. Ash did Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction, Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings, Ace Ventura from Ace Ventura, Donnie Darko from Donnie Darko, and War and Peace from Sky High. What a wild pick. I did Indiana Jones from any of the Indiana Joneses, Maximus Decimus Meridius from Gladiator, the Dude from Big Lebowski, the Bride from Kill Bill, and Neo from The Matrix. So let us know in the comments who you think won. Also let us know in the comments what you think of Tenet, and for next week, please watch Pleasantville. Ash promises it's a real film. We'll find out. But Tyler, thank you so much for joining us once again. I'd say to everyone to go follow you, but if they're already following us, they're following you already. But do go on and listen to everything Real Talk do. They're really setting the standard for production and consistency. So you're killing it over there, dude. So well done on absolutely everything. Also, the production value you did on the award show is nuts.
So good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That was like better than Golden Globes. Like it's probably going to be better than the Oscars. But yeah, always good to have you on, man. So we'll definitely have you on again in the future. You're a crowd favorite, so always good. But yeah, until next time, I'm Harry, it's Ash, that's Tyler. Love Death Movies, see the movies.